Hello, this is Tim Alexander, the Earl Stirling. I'm doing a series of videos on the events that are transpiring now, especially the Papal Conclave. Today's video is really on the topic of what kind of man does the Roman Catholic Church need to be electing as Supreme Pontiff, as Bishop of Rome, Pope. The issue is not one primarily of inner College of Cardinals politics. That may be a determining factor, but that is not the real issue of the type of person that we need. We have had way too much for too many decades now of people that are good at the external part of being a pope. They look pontifical, they smile, they walk with their hands folded, and they make lots of signs and crosses. And that's not very hard to do. But the real issue is, what are you doing to save God's children? Now, the first and primary mission of the church is to save souls, to get people to God. That goes above all others. But in this day and age, when you're looking at the Third World War and a global economic depression, virtually chaos, and the growing use of absolute high-tech tyranny, the beta testing of advanced drone and robotic warfare, the type of weapon systems that are available to a number of countries. The Iranians in particular are very much into advanced biological warfare, which is recombinant DNA genetic engineering based. They literally have dozens, if not 100 plus, doomsday weapons, viral weapons, that they can spread using bioterrorism among EU and NATO nations. And you have to remember, when the Bible talks about the end of days, when it talks about Armageddon, it says a third will die of plague, and it very definitely seems to be advanced biowar, and a third will die of wormwood. Wormwood is the translation for a village in Ukraine, which we all know, Chernobyl. So that implies that a third will die of radiation poisoning and nuclear warfare. We are moving very close to nuclear war in the Middle East, and also perhaps in the Korea, North and South Korea, and some other places, China, Japan, and so forth. But in a Third World War, we'll have multiple war theaters. The global banking cartel families, the people that control the money supply of the world, and almost every central bank other than that of North Korea and Iran, less than a handful now. Libya was in there. Gaddafi's dead. One of the first things they did was set up a central bank they control. The apex of the global banking cartel families is the Rothschilds and their empire. Credit Suisse recently estimated the net worth of the Rothschild family at, I think it was 231 trillion US dollars. Now, that's an insane amount, and it's probably conservative. The Rothschilds are known to be Satanist, literally Luciferian worshipping. If you look at history, if you know the history of the last 200, 300 years, you know that a very small group of families that essentially are counterfeiters legally. They create money out of thin air and then loan it to governments. And the governments have to pay the principal back as well as compound interest. In the United States, it's called the Federal Reserve System. It's been operational for 100 years. It's illegal. It's not authorized by the Constitution, but that doesn't stop them. When you create your own money and print your own money, you can buy off all the politicians that are corrupt, which unfortunately more and more seems to be most of them. But then if you have infinite money, you make sure that most of the politicians are corrupt and in your back pocket. The global banking cartel families have used wars for hundreds of years now to strengthen their power, to make money, to reorganize society. The first global wars were the Napoleonic Wars, and then a whole series of wars, and they set up the events of the First World War, the Second World War, Cold Wars, etc., etc. The events of 9/11 and 7/7 in Great Britain were clearly false flag operations. Many other false flag operations have taken place. The people behind these are incredibly evil, and they see that to them there's too many people. There's over 7 billion, mostly unnecessary eaters in their lexicon, and they plan on thinning the herd through a new global war, and then restructuring society, and using things like the RFID chip and drone warfare and so forth to enslave the remaining population. Now, if you don't believe that, well, one, you're naive, two, you're stupid or willfully ignorant. If you are a cardinal of the church about to go in a conclave to elect a pope, you really better wake up quick, because the Catholic Church is probably the only institution in the entire world with sufficient power, sufficient media of its own, be it newspapers, televisions, radio, etc., that the globalists don't control. 1.3 billion followers, etc., that can stand up and fight for the children of God, fight for the human race, and fight the spiritual battle. And ultimately, what is happening is a spiritual battle between the followers of the defeated Lucifer and of God. And this is, if we can stop the onrush to absolute economic Armageddon and the real Armageddon of the Third World War, 21st century military technology and high-tech slave state tyranny, well, that's the greatest moral imperative, really, of the age. But my fear is that too much of the selection of the next pope is well, is he a European, or is he from a third world country? Is he from the South? Is he African or Asian? How conservative or liberal is he? Etc., etc. Now, obviously, unless you're an idiot, you know that celibacy has to go, and the quicker the better, because the Catholic Church is exactly where its enemies and the principal enemies is Satan want it to be. It's off here, struggling in this sea, in this sewer of really horrific stuff. Far too many, 50–60% in some places of its, many of its priests are gay, of pedophilia, molestation of children. And, when you allow just a large percentage of your priests to be homosexual, what do you expect, for crying out loud? And then you have all the shenanigans and the curia and so forth. Look, there is no time now for politics as usual. Events in the outside world, if you don't believe me, for God's sakes, open your eyes. get online and read. The events on the outside world are rapidly overtaking what we might call normality. And we're well into a global depression. We're headed for a global economic collapse. And the worst is the Third World War, with nuclear, advanced biological, cellular, and other weapons of mass destruction that will just kill billions, literally. Anyway, if we had the right man as Pope, he could speak on all these issues. He could reinvigorate the church. You know, we ought to be having masses, not just every morning at every parish, but in the evening for people that work that can't make it to 7 or 9 a.m. Mass. We ought to be having potluck dinners a couple nights a week for parishioners to come. We ought to be having special teenage masses and masses for little kids. We should be having all kind of events to get people in the church, 40-hour devotions, rosaries. And we should be, 50% or more of the young people unemployed in Spain, increasingly in Italy and Greece and so forth. That's 50% that don't even have any jobs. And then those that do have jobs, most are subpar, poorly paid, part-time jobs, loser jobs. You can't raise a family. You can't raise, you can't have a life. And it's totally unnecessary. It's so those that have trillions can have more. And this is not something that the churches of this world should remain silent on. Where is it written that all these matters that I'm speaking of, global economic depression, the ripping off of billions of people from their economic resources, their future lives, their hopes, their dreams, and then leading the world into a 21st century weapon of mass destruction based global war. Where is it written that this is not a moral imperative or not something that the church should be fighting? You need to elect a man that doesn't just look good, but actually does things. I mean, from day one, the man should be, every day, he should be working at a soup kitchen for lunch, handing out food to people. Every day, at least 5 days a week, he should either go to a hospital or a nursing home or a school, not just for photo ops, but for real. I mean, I've worked at soup kitchens and volunteers. I'm going to tell you, it's an absolutely great experience. But the Pope has to lead from the front. It has to be real. And we've gotten so much into this horrible Hollywood nonsense where things aren't real. It's just the image, and we spin things, and we dress up lies. You know, we put lipstick on a pig and we say, oh, isn't this wonderful? No, it's not wonderful. And people perceive that their leaders are full of it. And quite frankly, we need a pope that is genuine. And people say, the man's trying, he's doing some good. This is what we need. And the man has to have courage, because quite frankly, if you stand up to these characters, they may kill you. Well, you know, the church was built on blood for centuries, blood of its martyrs. You've got to have somebody that's willing to stand up against the most vile and corrupt and most powerful people on earth, to fight for the children of God. Now, this is Lord Stirling, Tim Alexander, Evans, Indiana, once again trying to reach out to the Cardinal-Electors and saying, may the Holy Spirit guide you in your coming decision. God bless.